When the idea of an indie fighter pops up, Skullgirls is among the first of the pile. Alongside the gorgeous animation and in-depth gameplay, one of the biggest draws of Skullgirls is its characters. Be it from their personalities or their unique gameplay styles, they're one of the highlights of the game. With Marie being confirmed as the final character for the first season of the Second Encore, it's time to ask our famous question: which of these characters are pure of heart to make a wish to get high up in our list, and which ones are just purely evil? I'm Kifinosi with One Up Binge, and today we're ranking the Skullgirls characters from good to evil. As usual, we'll be starting with the most pure and noble and working our way down to the most evil. These guys make living in the streets of Canopy Kingdom safe, even with all the insane characters and fights going on. For the gold medal of good Skullgirls, give a big hand to the big band. This cop is one of the few honest and genuine officers on the beat in the Canopy Kingdom, refusing to be a part of the MEDICI Mafia's payroll. However, one day he ended up getting betrayed and beaten to a pulp by his fellow, much more corrupt cops. However, again, thanks to Lab 8, he was able to be saved and turned into the giant music man with every instrument on demand he is seen as today. He's one of the few members of the Skullgirls characters who are practically without any faults. He's also basically the leader of Lab 8 outside of Dr. Avian, being one of the few people able to keep up with Peacock and keep her in check, be it by looking for her after seeing her leave Lab 8 in the mobile game, or chasing after her in his story mode when she's determined to beat the Skullgirl after she killed Dr. Avian. Big Band is also willing to empathize with those he's forced to fight, like him offering his condolences to Painwheel for her situation and a place to stay in Lab 8, willing to be a father figure for her along with Peacock. With how level-headed he is with others, how genuine and morally upright he is despite everything that happened to him, and still desiring to keep the city clean of crime, Big Band's one of the few characters in Skullgirls we're comfortable with saying is purely good. Next up, for Silver Medal of Purity, we have the Crown Princess of the Canopy Kingdom, Parasol. After her father waged war against neighboring countries, her mother wished for peace on the Skullheart, becoming the Skullgirl and forcing the nations to come together in peace to take her down. Knowing the dangers the Skullheart and Skullgirl can be, Parasol becomes as active as she can to keep her kingdom at peace. Alongside watching over the kingdom, she's also watching over her younger sister Umbrella and making sure she's safe, even wishing on the Skullheart to keep Umbrella safe, even if it meant she would be the next Skullgirl 7 years later. Parasol wants to do her best to keep the kingdom safe, dealing with the criminals on the street, mainly the MEDICI Mafia. However, as the webcomics show, she's surprisingly a bit of a hothead, with her ignoring her father's orders to not engage with the MEDICI Mafia, only to do so, and as such not only get their focus on her and her family, but also jeopardize her life when the Skullgirl ended up coming in to try and kill the Mafia. Right after realizing that one of the anti-Skullgirls labs was still active thanks to Peacock, she immediately changes gears and tries to get them shut down, seeing them as a threat to the kingdom, but is able to put that aside to focus on the main threat, the Skullgirl. It's a case where Parasol does want to do the best she can for the kingdom, but she can be surprisingly forceful when trying to get the best outcome for the Canopy Kingdom. For our Bronze Medal of Goodness, we have Squiggly's faithful parasite, Leviathan. Now, the term parasite sounds very negative, but most of the time, these parasites really just want the best for their hosts, and Leviathan is the best in these terms of morality. This parasite was passed down from the Contiello family, passed down to Squiggly from his former host Roberto, just before his wife became the Skullgirl, sparing Squiggly from being a minion to her. As her parasite, Leviathan's willing to keep his word to his former master, doing the best to keep Squiggly safe, being polite and cordial with her. He isn't afraid to stay with Squiggly, even sleeping under the dirt with her for 7 years until she's able to come back again. Really, the worst he does is just snark back against some of Squiggly's enemies. Really, Leviathan's just one of the best and sweetest parasites one can have. Next up, we have the undead singer, Squiggly. Once just a kid in a loving family, she was killed brutally on her mother's birthday. In grief, her mother wished for the Skullheart to bring her family back from the dead, becoming the Skullgirl herself. However, thanks to Leviathan being bonded to Squiggly, she was able to be spared from being a minion of the Skullgirl, being able to take down her mother and father before being sent to sleep till the next Skullgirl. Getting woken up thanks to the Skullgirl, she sets out with Leviathan in order to take down the threat. She's one of the most polite members of the fighting roster, even apologizing when she attacks. Really, the worst that Squiggly does is express rage against those that killed her and her family, and even then, she's able to put that behind her to focus on the serious threat of the Skullgirl. So despite being an undead zombie, she's definitely one of the more humane members of this list. Get ready for a howling good time, because our next character is BEOWULF. This former wrestler was the champion of the ring, beating down the former champion, the Gigan warrior Grendel, and saving the audience from his mother. However, after his acting career fell through, he ended up retiring, itching for the chance to prove himself again, deciding to fight the Skullgirl. Yeah, that can definitely be considered a leap of logic, but behind his decision, there's a true desire to be a hero. Once he realizes that he's being played by Double disguised as Zane, BEOWULF starts to fight back against being used, and once he realized the truth that Grendel was drugged up before the fight, he declares to the crowd about what happened and and promises to make it up to his fans and Grendel by taking down the Skullgirl. He seems to genuinely hate the fact that he was so easily tricked in the past and he was just focused on being a celebrity and wants to make up for it. For as big of an ego as he can have at times, it's clear that BEOWULF really does care for others and wants to keep his fans safe and happy. In our next spot, it's Lab 8's magnum opus, Peacock. Once an orphan from war, then a slave for the Medici Mafia, and now a resident of Lab 8, Peacock's been through the ringer and then some, and her personality shows for it. Now, normally, a crude character like Peacock probably wouldn't rank this high, and on the surface, sure, it seems like that. Peacock is basically Deadpool raised on cartoon shows, using cartoonish tropes and cliches to attack her foes, with these usually funny and lighthearted gags becoming much more harsh and dangerous in real life. The game world, or real life in the fake game world. Look, you get the idea. She's also very cocky and arrogant on top of it all, like an actual peacock. So what does she have that puts her this high up in terms of morality? Simply put, outside of fights, she's surprisingly amiable and extremely loyal to her friends. Her best showcase of morality comes from her backstory, with her willingly sacrificing her own life just to protect her best friend Marie from being further enslaved by the Medici Mafia. She definitely was a swell girl for willingly sacrificing herself to save her friend, and that side is still there. Outside of fights, as seen in the webcomic or when talking to Eileen in Annie's story, Peacock is more than happy to make casual talk with others about stuff that piques her interest, and even tries to talk down the Skullgirl after realizing that it's her friend Marie. In the games, after beating Marie, she's even more than willing to follow Marie's idea of getting rid of the Medici Mafia to keep the city safe from them. Overall, while Peacock is a handful of times, she's still one of the better members of the Canopy Kingdom. From one kid to another, next up is the sister of the princess, Umbrella. Parasol's sister, whom she swore to protect through thick and thin, Umbrella is more than willing to try and prove herself in a fight. Of course, being the protective big sister she is, Parasol constantly keeps Umbrella behind the scenes and away from the action. In Parasol's story mode, she's more of a hindrance to her sister, we must admit, but not her genuine fault. Thanks to the Skullgirl's blood inside her body and double taking advantage of her by disguising herself as her dead mother, she ends up getting too close to the Skull Heart for Parasol to risk damaging it, ending up wishing on it to save her sister. In her own story mode, however, Umbrella finally gets a chance to step into the fray. While still scrappy and eager to prove herself, she's able to be a pretty nice person outside of that. She was able to not only befriend Philia and Samson after their fight, but also was able to help Painwheel break free from Brain Drain's control in her story mode, alongside still helping her sister beat the Skullgirl and showing her desire to not go down the same warpath her parents chose. Overall, definitely a kid with a bright future ahead of her, even if she can be a bit too hungry for battle. When's Annie? Now's Annie. Once wished to be forever youthful by her mother on the Skullheart, Annie is now stuck as a young girl for as long as she still walks. Good going, Mom. However, she still has dedicated her life to reaching and beating the Skullgirl for the rest of her life and trying to find a way to put a permanent end to the Skullheart. Using a show as a cover for her eternal youth, Annie used her show to give people hope and morality during a time when the Canopy Kingdom was harshly regulated, and it was eventually turned from a radio show into a TV show. However, it's clear that living essentially forever has caused Annie's mind to become more cynical. She started viewing her show as something of a hassle and is focused more and more on hunting down the Skullgirl, being initially dismissive towards others and their ideas, especially if it's them going after the Skullgirl. She only really allowed Eileen to accompany her, even after she won a contest to spend the day with her fair and square, because the show would be more or less cancelled if she denied her, and insults Peacock and BEOWULF after beating them, calling Peacock pretty unrefined for fighting anyone and refusing to comfort her after she storms off, and getting angry at BEOWULF for reminding her of how adults keep making the same mistake with the Skullgirl over and over again. However, thanks to Big Band and her agent Florence protecting her in the fight with Double, and Eileen giving Annie words of encouragement, she ends up remembering just what she was fighting for and starts to soften up, accepting Eileen's idea of personally apologizing to Peacock and BEOWULF for her rough actions earlier and giving them a spot on the show. While she definitely is still a force of good and started her path as one, Annie's years definitely soured her a bit and made her more prone to snapping unjustly at others, hence why she had to get knocked down a couple of spots. Up next is the cat burglar Miss Fortune. Nadia Fortune is a member of the Fishbone Gang, performing heists with them. Mostly the crimes they commit are just petty theft, and from what we've seen so far, it's just them stealing from the Medici Mafia, so it definitely could be a lot worse. According to her bio, Miss Fortune loves stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, so she definitely has some Robin Hood-like tendencies to her. One heist against them, however, ended up with Nadia stealing the life gem, leading to the Mafia unleashing Black Dahlia on them, killing them all. However, thanks to Nadia swallowing the life gem, she was spared from death and became a woman who could use her own limbs to fight, not just like regularly, you know. Despite her title as a thief, she's still pretty friendly and loyal, especially to the Fishbone Gang, since they rescued her when she was an orphan. Despite all the tragedies in her life, Miss Fortune still tries her best to keep being upbeat and friendly with others, having her own friends in the Little Innsmouth area, like Minette, even caring enough for her to try and go after her after hearing she was kidnapped at the end of her story mode. Despite the title of thief, Miss Fortune definitely has way more good traits than any negative ones. Next up is one of the first Skullgirls characters and what the developers called the main, Filia. This girl is the daughter of 2 Medici Mafia members who wanted to leave their life of crime. However, with the Mafia sensing betrayal, they were all gunned down, with Filia only surviving as she got infected with the parasite Samson, losing her memory in the process. Now, she's roaming the streets, and with Samson's help, she tries to find a way to get her memory back. Given how she's not willing to fight anyone, only really fighting when Samson ropes her into a fight, it's easy to see that she's just a nice kid who is simply scared and wants to get her memories back. Even when she was a member of the Mafia by her parents, she was still very polite and friendly. Sure, Filia could be a bit playful and teasing towards others as a schoolgirl, but she was still very nice and sweet. Once she finds out about Painwheel and remembers her past history with her when she was Carol, she abandons her chance to get her memories and wishes Carol could live a normal life, even if she had to become a Skullgirl in the end. Overall, definitely one of the nicest members of the Medici Mafia you could find. And with Filia here, rounding us off is her parasite, Samson. He's perhaps the most gruff member of the entire roster, being spiteful of others just for simply looking at him funny. However, behind this rough exterior, he truly does care for his host, Filia. Saving her from death after bonding to her Hare, he watches over her after feeling bad for failing to protect her when she and her family were all alive. While he is pretty aggressive, Samson does care for Filia truly, with all his soul, so he's still a good person at the end of the day. Next up, it's the gray area. These characters all have their own problems, either caused by others around them or themselves. They're not truly bad guys, just stuck in bad situations. Starting us off, we have the broken form of Carol, Painwheel. Originally just a schoolgirl, she was kidnapped by the Medici Mafia, and when she was found by Valentine and was determined that her blood was suitable for her experiment at Lab Zero, was kidnapped by her. Experimented on by her and brain drain, her body was forced to take on not only the Buer Drive and the Gaia Bolga parasites, but also the blood of a Skullgirl. This unfortunate combination caused her to get pretty unhinged and filled with hatred. However, her anger is pretty much only due to her current situation, which is completely understandable. Her anger and rage cause her to lash out at others if she thinks they're standing in her way from breaking free from brain drain. When she's able to get out of her mask and free from brain drain's control, like in Umbrella's story, Carol is still the same nice girl she once was, more than happy to just live a normal life with Filia as her friend. Really, she only got into the gray area because of brain drain's experiments on her, causing her personality to take a sudden, unfortunate, sharp turn. Next up, we have the Medici's performer, Sarabella. This circus performer was adopted out of homelessness by Vitalia of the Medici Mafia, and she looked up to him ever since, seeing him as her savior. With her hat, vice versa, she uses it to wow the crowds of the city and try to impress Vitale. This is a case where Sarabella is a good person, just caught up with and supporting the wrong people. She was a child of one of the lands where King Franz was fighting, getting her city reduced to ash, and was only saved by the Medici Mafia. It's easy to see why she's so willing to serve them while she views Parasol and her family as the villains. Her willingness in her own story mode to serve them has led her to crushing misfortune to get the life gem from her to return to Vitale. However, she does end up feeling unsure of herself after this, realizing she may have crossed a line. In Umbrella's story mode, she was willing, even if she was a bit reluctant, to go along with kidnapping Umbrella with Eliza, and when she realizes Eliza may do more than kidnap her, she decides to knock her out and let Umbrella escape. While she's willing to serve the Medici Mafia however she can, Sarabella seems to draw the line at murdering others, and if she does cross the line, odds are she would be sickened with herself. For as nice of a girl as she is, she's still willing to help out some awful people, even if she has her own standards. For this willingness, we can't safely call her truly good, even if she has pure intentions or just wants to help who she sees as her father figure. Right in the middle is the main Skullgirl, Marie. Marie was once friends with Patricia, but after she helped her escape and was tortured for her crimes, she became filled with rage for her kidnappers. Finding the Skull Heart, she wishes on it to take revenge on the Mafia. Unlike the other Skullgirls who were controlled easily by the Skull Heart, Marie's heart's been stated by Double to be strong enough to resist and go on with her own agenda. As such, we have to count the lives of innocent lives she ends up killing in her rampage. Like with almost killing Filia's family for their association with the Medici Mafia, Sarabella for her love for the Mafia after they saved her life while she was unaware of any of their more corrupt dealings, and the police for finding most of them corrupt for accepting bribes. It's easy to see that Marie is acting on pure vengeance alone, going for an extreme solution, but she is still nice enough to warn others to not wish on the Skull Heart and even offered Peacock to leave so she wouldn't have to kill her best friend. She was even willing to stop a tower she accidentally knocked over just to keep the civilians underneath it safe. Despite her ruthless rampage, she's doing it out of revenge and is more than happy to make the Medici Mafia suffer as she and Peacock had. So while we can't fully call her good due to her wrath getting this extreme, we can see where she's coming from, hence being placed in the middle here. Underneath the Skullgirl is the Skullgirl Watcher, Valentine. She was once part of an anti-Skullgirl alliance called the Last Hope. However, with all of her allies being killed, Valentine ends up pledging her loyalty to the Skullgirl to be spared. She's seen happily fulfilling the Skullgirl's desires, like leading Marie to Lab 8 to kill Dr. Avian and trying to take care of Marie after seeing she got hurt. However, she's secretly using her close position to the Skullgirl to destroy Marie from the inside and works for Lab Zero. She was the one that came across Brain Drain and even brought back Carol to experiment on to turn her into Painwheel. However, we do see that she really isn't comfortable being that cruel to Painwheel and only really did it after heavy pushing from Brain Drain. We can see see her regret it in her story mode, with her wishing to become the next Skullgirl out of guilt for everything that happened, wanting Pinwheel to kill her. While Valentine is working to stop the Skullgirl, she still takes too much pleasure in her mission, even happily fighting others for the thrill of experimenting on them, like what she wanted to do with Miss Fortune. She's perhaps the most morally complex character here, and it's why she's down this low. At the end of this section, we have the robot cat girl, Robo Fortune. Created by Brain Drain after getting infuriated by Valentine's report on Miss Fortune, Brain Drain created her to serve him and give him the skull heart. However, his programming for her has left her with a couple of loose screws, and we mean that both figuratively and literally. Most of the time, she's just a misguided and lighthearted henchwoman for Brain Drain, being lighthearted as she tries to master comedy and be a better Miss Fortune. However, deep down, she does feel like Brain Drain shouldn't be in charge of the skull heart. But yet, even after beating Marie, she still gives it to him and leads a robotic army in an apocalypse situation, so she's at least willing to comply with him even if she knows better. In other story modes, like Black Dahlia's, she's still right next to Brain Drain, showing a willingness to serve him. While we can't say that she's definitely all bad, we still would prefer the original Miss Fortune. Finally, it's the evil category. Here are where the worst of the worst go, and are the reason why this world is so messed up. For the start of this tier, we have the April Fool's Day joke character, Vukovic. Stuck inside Ophelia's head, Fuqua is a hybrid of a zonerphilia and a grapplerphilia, brought to life, or rather dream, by Brain Drain. She only has one goal, and that is to replace Philia. We don't just mean kill her and be the superior Philia, we mean literally replace her life, by taking her face and Samson and placing it above her own face. Even when she finally got a slot in the actual game's story, she's just someone who replaced Philia after taking over her mind, with no other main goals we know about. She does try to warn about the world coming to an end, which is what Dahlia does at the end of her story mode, so that's a small positive about her. While she's definitely someone filled with jealousy, that jealousy can only go so far. She's certainly evil, but not that evil. Next up, we have the main artifact itself, the Skull Heart. This bone heart was created for the sole purpose of corrupting women and turning them into Skullgirls. Preying on those who are desperate enough to wish on it, he takes their wishes and judges if they're pure or not. Those with wishes not pure will be turned into Skullgirls. He will definitely be looking for any way to turn any wish, regardless of how pure it looks on the surface, on its head to get himself another Skullgirl host, wanting to cause as much mayhem as possible. That said, he's at least able to be cordial with those he sees the wishes of as mostly pure, and if you do have a pure wish, be it from a genuinely good or purely evil point of view, he will honor your wish and leave you be. Plus, he does seem to genuinely hate Eliza, so make of that what you will. Overall, he's definitely an artifact that does need to be destroyed for good, and it's easy to see why. For our next entry, it's an entire group, with the MEDICI Mafia. These guys may appear decent to the common folk, but underneath the surface, there are some vile of the most vile figures. While some members like Sarabella are definitely nicer than the rest, the majority of them are still, at the end of the day, nasty crooks, using their money to corrupt others, even the police, and making the corrupt police beat down Big Band. They do whatever they can to take whatever treasures and money they can, even at the cost of others. It's not frequent for them to kidnap humans and use them for slavery, just like what Peacock went through. Though they may not be the main threat to the kingdom, they are still a plague upon the Canopy Kingdom. Just outside of the top three, we have the Medici's lounge singer, Eliza. This countless-year-old woman actually has a beneficial relationship with a parasite called Sekhmet, keeping her looking young as she hosts blood drives, preying off of others' innocence just to feed herself their blood to stay eternally young. Getting blackmailed by the Medici, she ends up helping them with their task, watching over Sarabella as they hunt down the Skull Heart and fight others. Soon enough, she goes off task, kidnapping Nadia Fortune for the life gem inside her, along with using her as a personal drinking fountain and killing Sarabella. She also ends up mummifying Philia to keep her and Samson alive till she can give him a new host more loyal to her, and uses Squiggly and Leviathan as an alert for when a new Skull Heart comes forth. She's apparently so violent and nasty that even the Skull Heart doesn't want anything to do with her while Double tears her arm off. If the Skull Heart and Double want nothing to do with someone, that's definitely a telling sign that she is definitely a threatening foe. Really, the only thing Eliza has that's good about her is hating any prejudices of parasites, but given how she is part parasite at this point, it's easy to see why she may have this opinion. Receiving the bronze medal of evil, we have the evil nun, Double. She's a servant of the Trinity who pledged her loyalty to them, wanting to serve them by using the Skull Heart. She's willing to help deliver the Skull Heart to people who she sees as vulnerable, planning on turning them into Skullgirls when they make a wish. Her loyalty lies solely to the Trinity, wanting to fulfill their orders and desires, and getting angry when others don't follow her plans. This obedience to them is already concerning due to how evil the Trinity really is, but she's willing to do anything they want. This leads to her killing and capturing the entirety of the main cast in her story mode, and devouring them in the end of her story mode. In other story modes, she's more than willing to manipulate others to get what she wants, like with BEOWULF. With foes like her around, spreading propaganda in favor of the Trinity, you can see just how messed up and dangerous the Skullgirl world world is. For our silver medals of evil, we have the Trinity, them being Mother Lamia, Aeon, and Venus. These three are the goddesses of the Skullgirls universe, and they definitely aren't that pleasant. Their goal is to make the entire population of women in the Canopy Kingdom into Skullgirls. Their reason for doing this is unknown, but from what we see of their room, the Skullgirls' world to them is just a game series, with them having multiple games and merchandise of them. Could it be that they're just the creators of this world and treating it more like a game than thinking it was real? Definitely doesn't excuse any carnage they cause, but it can explain it. Plus, with Black Dahlia's ending, they seem to be trying to find a way to get out of their trapped dimension. Oh, and speaking of her, for our gold medal of evil, there's only one flower wicked enough for this spot, and that person is Black Dahlia. While she was originally another human who was beaten down to the point where she needed to go to the anti-Skullgirls labs to get repaired, she soon went rogue, becoming one of the best members of the Medici Mafia, willing to be as cruel and deranged as possible to her enemies. She was more than happy to even kill Squiggly back when she was alive, taunting her family just before killing them. However, what really sealed Black Dahlia's fate here is her story mode. Where Marie didn't want to kill everyone, Black Dahlia was more than willing to take a cheap shot at Marie, making her drop the Medici tower she was holding up, killing pretty much everyone inside and innocents below the tower. After killing the Skullgirl, she just keeps the Skullheart around to draw people to her to fight, killing as many people as she can, wanting the thrill of driving people absolutely mad and breaking their morality while reveling in the thrill to fight. Think Junko Inoshima if she decided to just kill her enemies instead of using the killing games. And if you need even more proof that Black Dahlia is the most evil person here, the Skullheart himself declares her to be pure enough to make a wish on it without any consequences. The thing about that is, he never specified that they had to be purely good or purely evil. Take a guess where Black Dahlia fell between the two. And her wish, when she finally gets the chance to make it, ends up causing the entire world to turn into a hellish nightmare filled with beasts she can kill for her own amusement. At least Robo Fortune just wanted to follow orders to obey the programming the Brain Drain gave her. Black Dahlia is bloodthirsty and deranged and wants to cause worldwide mayhem and chaos thanks to her warped worldview. She more than deserves the gold medal of evil here.